In 2004, I walked into Wagner College as a basketball player. In 2012, I left here with my master's degree in education. And now in 2025, I get to come back up on the stage with a microphone. I'm really excited. It's a full circle moment for me, and I'm appreciative to be here with you guys. Since I left Wagner, I've been a teacher, a coach, a trainer, and now I'm a parent, and I learned something really important, and that is that kids today aren't really that much different than the kids that we used to be. We all acknowledge the fact that the world is changing around us, but what we don't want to acknowledge is that it's really us, the adults, that are changing. So my idea today is simple but powerful, and it's something that we don't talk about nearly enough, and that is, if we want to preserve curiosity, creativity, and innovation in our kids, we have to protect their space to be bored, struggle, and fail while being surrounded with supportive and caring adults. That is how creative, curious, and innovative kids are built. Not through perfect conditions, but through real ones. So, before I jump in and I talk about boredom, I just want to make sure that we're talking about age-appropriate things. So what we're talking about is age-appropriate boredom, struggle, and failure. That means we don't want to put our kids through traumatic situations, but we want to make sure that they're going through these things safely. And so what I'll do throughout the talk is I'll give you little examples so that we're all on the same page. So let's jump right in to boredom. When we talk about age-appropriate boredom, we're talking about unstructured play, no screens, no TV, no plan, waiting, wondering, and having nothing to do. I used to have an expression when I was a coach, when I was coaching kids to play basketball, I used to tell kids all the time, boring drills build great skills. Why did I say that? Because I know that the discipline and the focus that it takes to get through those mundane, tedious tasks is exactly what sharpens your mind and allows you to master a specific skill set. So when I mentally prepared the kids to push through the boredom, it changed the focus, and the focus became not getting bored. And that shifted them to be able to focus, and that focus is what creates growth. And the same thing applies beyond sports. Given unstructured play and no plan, a child's brain begins to create, imagine, and problem solve. And boredom becomes a spark for creativity and not a problem to avoid. A study in 2020 proves the same thing by Burke and Dunn. Given unstructured play and boredom increases cognitive flexibility and creativity. Basically, left alone with nothing to do, a child's brain is forced to invent. And before you know it, they build a fort with cushions, a game with sticks, or a storyline in the backyard. It's really quite impressive. But just when you think things are flowing and you've got it all figured out, a challenge arises. A sibling comes over and knocks over your blocks, an idea fails, and that's when boredom transforms itself into the next phase of the process, which is struggle. When we talk about age-appropriate struggle, we're talking about things like getting a new friend group, or learning a new concept in school, learning how to ride a bike, learning to tie your shoes or zipper up your jacket. I'll give you a quick story about a time where I faced a small struggle. We were at the final phase of building our basketball facility here on Staten Island called Jump Shots. And one of the last things that we had to do was we had to clip up these protective covers on the sprinkler heads around the building. You had to clip them, you had to paint them, and you got to go to the next one. So from the ground level, looking up, I said, no problem, I got it. So I went up, I clipped on the first one, I painted it, and just as I was about to go to the next piece, I looked around and I just became overwhelmed at how many were left to be done. So I got off the scissor lift and I left the building. I just left. So that's it. Okay? So when I got home and I told my dad, I said, this is the problem. He said, don't worry, we'll bang it out, we'll get through it. The next day we went back, we put our head down, we got right to work. He did a couple with me, and then something really interesting happened. My dad had to go, and I decided I was going to stay, and I finished the job. Why? Because somebody showed up to help me and get me on the right track and show me that I was doing it properly. I got into a flow and I got a little rhythm. And a lot of the times, that's really all that our kids need, is somebody there to help them get on the right track and get a little bit of momentum and learn how to get through the struggle. But here's the problem. Struggle makes a lot of people uncomfortable, especially kids. And when adults don't understand the true value of struggle, they step in and they do the work for the child. And that's really the worst thing that you can do. Because struggle is not the problem. Struggle is the process. It's what helps you build strength, focus, and grit. And when kids learn to embrace the challenge, instead of avoiding it, they become resilient and they learn to trust the process. Struggle is not a setback, it's the resistance that builds them up. And when you go through enough of it, you're bound to run into the next piece of the puzzle, which is failure. And failure is the worst of all, right? Because nobody wants to fail. And certainly, as teachers and coaches, we don't want to see our players fail, our students fail, and certainly not our children. Sarah Blakely is the owner and founder of Spanx, and she has her own masterclass. And in that masterclass, she talks about times during her childhood where her dad would sit her and her siblings down at the table, and they would say, "What did you fail at today?" And they would have that discussion. And he would always finish with, "Well, now make sure that you come back tomorrow with a different failure." Now, why would he do that unless he recognized that failure is really the beginning of the road to success? So when we talk about failure for our kids, we're talking about being told no, trying something and not succeeding, failing a test, or maybe not making a team that you want to make. I had been coaching a kid who was a good basketball player, and the mom came over to me and she said, I want my son to play travel basketball. And I said, I think it's a great idea. He's a good enough player. You just got to send him to the tryouts. And she said, oh, tryouts. I don't know. I think I'm changing my mind. I don't want him to get cut. What if he feels like he's not good enough? And I guess that she was trying to protect his emotions, but here's the problem. When we shield our kids from failure, we rob them of the opportunity to learn from that failure. That tryout could have been a life lesson either way. It could have taught the kid that sometimes you don't get what you want in life right away, or that everything that you get in life you have to earn and work for, or that failure isn't the end. It's really just the beginning. But the fear wasn't the child's fear, it was the parent's fear. So, and we're seeing this more and more often as we go through this process. Adults, teachers, coaches, parents, we're stepping in too early, too often, and too frequently, when meanwhile, when it's age appropriate and supported, failure is really the greatest gift that we can give our kids. Because failure isn't the finish line. It's feedback in disguise. It's telling you that you're still in the game, you're still learning, and you're still reaching for your goals. The goal is not to avoid failure, it's to normalize failure, to rinse and repeat through the process of boredom, struggle, and failure until it becomes second nature. The more we can get our kids to experience failure and recovery, the less scary it becomes. And then failure, it doesn't even become seen as failure anymore. It's just another way that didn't work, and now they're one step closer to a way that will work. So we just have to remember that being supportive doesn't mean removing the fall. It means helping kids learn how to get back up again. And we've talked a bunch about supportive and caring adults throughout the talk. So what does it mean to be a person who helps kids grow through boredom, struggle, and failure? I have 4 different ways that are very powerful that you can start doing today. The first one is we have to be better at celebrating progress and not perfection. We are becoming an extremely result-driven society. Coaches want wins. Teachers want high scores on standardized tests. Parents just want results. They don't care about the middle ground. We have to be able as adults to encourage kids to do the things in the middle, because we know that if they do those things, they will eventually see success, and we have to start praising those efforts. We have to allow the kids to sit in the struggle. I think what a lot of folks are missing is that when our kids sit in the struggle, that is when they best learn how they learn. And the faster we can get them through that process, the more efficient they'll be, and the better they'll be able to critically think later on. Modeling our own imperfections. Every day we all face different struggles and failures. Being able to allow our kids into that world, whether you're a teacher or a coach or a parent, allowing them to see how you handle those situations. What do you do when you're struggling? What do you do when you're failing? How do you get through that? And modeling those behaviors, because they will mirror us. And then last but not least is being present, being fully present. We live in a world where it's very unique. We're on 24 hours a day. You got your email is always on, you're doom scrolling, and you're watching your favorite Netflix show all at the same time. It's intense, but if we really want to engage with our kids, we have to make eye contact, we have to ask quality questions, We have to sit with them in their boredom and their struggle and help them through it and help them feel seen and let them feel heard. That's how you fully engage. And when you do those things, something beautiful happens. Through the connections that you're making, you start to guide them without even realizing it. So here's what I learned as a coach, a teacher, a trainer, and a parent. Kids don't need us to protect them from the struggle. They need us to help them find success inside the struggle. It's not our job to carry them through. It's our job to pick them up, brush them off, and let them know that they're a little bit stronger than they were the day before. That's what true support looks like. It's letting them know that failure isn't final and that progress, even if it's tiny, is still progress. And when we celebrate that progress with them and we help them do something that's difficult and hard and they feel what it's like to come out on the other side, that feeling is addicting. And they start craving it, and they start chasing it, and they start owning it until they become strong, curious, creative, and innovative kids, which in the future leads them to that entrepreneurial mindset that everybody's seeking within them, not because we gave it to them, but because we help them unlock it for themselves. Thank you.